Hey, everybody, welcome to the weekend review edition of Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'm Dan Bespris. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Bespris, Old Man Squad on Blue Sky. I hope you will certainly consider doing so. On these weekly shows, we go through the biggest stories of basically the last 5 days or so. Typically, we don't go all the way back through the weekend, giving you the ads, the drops, the injury replacements, the holds, the stashes. There's a lot of names and a lot of things to cover. Please take a moment to hit the like button on the show. Like our trade deadline live show as well if you have an opportunity to do so. We're up to 735 likes on that. 750 was my goal. I feel like we're almost definitely going to get there with 6 days to go before the show airs, so that's a big one. And check out our buddies at Bet Online. The biggest betting weekend of the year is finally here, which means updated odds and props for Super Sunday. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. They have hundreds of prop bets, MVP odds, exclusive in-game live betting opportunities, making BetOnline your ultimate game day companion. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-timer, BetOnline offers you everything and more to enhance that game day experience. So visit the website today and make game day action count a little bit more. BetOnline, the game starts here. Hell yeah, man. Super Bowl Sunday right around the corner. I don't know. Do you guys bet on the Super Bowl? It's sort of a tradition, a tale as old as time. Anyway, 15-week in review thread back on a normal Friday release. Finally, I don't know if we'll be able to keep it up, but so it goes today. You guys already know where I'm at. Like, rate, and subscribe. That's a big one. Subscribe. Let's start with the injury replacements. We always start with them because it's the longest list on the board, and it knocks out a lot of names, and that way you're not asking why you're not seeing them on other lists later on today's program. So everybody keeps giving me a hard time on this one, and you guys obviously, Amen Thompson is obviously a monster. We drafted him anywhere that we could. He started going early. It made it harder. If you go back and you watch all of our preseason shows, we talked about Amen Thompson about 1,000 times. But until guys started getting hurt for the Rockets, Thompson was not an everyday fantasy guy. Much as I'd like to claim that he was and give ourselves a big pat on the back, he wasn't. He was like top 120 to 130 range. And then Dylan Brooks missed a couple of games, and he went bigger. Freddie VanVleet missed a game or two. He went bigger. And then Jabari Smith went down now for a longer haul. And Thompson has really exploded onto the scene. So it's not an insult to have him on the injury replacement board. We just legitimately haven't seen him post solid everyday fantasy numbers when the Rockets were fully healthy. Well, with one guy out, he's a 4-burger play. It's the only one I've ever done in the history of mankind because he's basically like a top 25 dude right now. And he probably will continue to have value because it feels like he's sort of opened up the box here. And now you're seeing the treasure. Daniel Gafford is a 3-burger play. We don't have any 2-burger plays right now. Burgers being how confident I am that they put up massive numbers. 6 guys I have in the 1-burger zone. That's Malik Beasley. Do I need to tell you who they're filling in for? Doesn't matter. That's for Jaden Ivey, and that's basically for the year. Kelly Oubre Jr. for Joel Embiid and Paul George right now. Ayo Dosunmu for Zach LaVine. Gershon Yabusele also for Joel Embiid, although it sounds like there's a chance Embiid might play in the Sixers' next ball game, so stay tuned on that one. Yabusele might get punted off of the old listaroo. Mike Conley, I actually kind of like right now. I know he sat out the Wolves' last ball game, but with Dante DiVincenzo down, his minutes have trended up pretty good, and I'm inclined to think that he can probably get you top 100 value while playing closer to 30 minutes per ball game. So Conley squeezes onto the list. Luke Kennard is on the list for John Morant, and he's the last of the guys that I'm confident in. So 8 names right now on the injury board that I have a pretty good amount of confidence in, ranging up to all the confidence in the universe in Gafford and Amen Thompson, and down to Conley as sort of like the lowest rung on that board. There are, however, another 7 names I thought would be worth mentioning on the injury board, guys that I don't have a ton of confidence, more like coin flip. Jackson Hayes with Anthony Davis out, had a good game against the Wizards. I don't expect that to happen again, maybe ever, but certainly The Lakers need to be playing a team that's not really a real NBA ball club. Vit Krejci, who was terrible in his last ball game. You guys have heard me talk about him on this show a few times as somebody that I don't really trust, but it does feel like he's a guy the Hawks are giving a shot to intermittently. And so I think what I'd say on Krejci is if he's starting, that's probably where you give him a go. Because then you're thinking, all right, this guy's probably going to get 25 minutes or more. Coming off the bench, it's a little bit too dicey. Zaire Williams, I think, has a chance to have some value with Noah Clowney dealing with the ankle thing. I don't know how long that's expected to keep him out. We haven't gotten a really good report on it, but obviously everything with Brooklyn is going to be, oh, you're a little sore? Take 3 weeks. We'll see. Clowney's a guy that we know they want to get minutes to. I haven't been that impressed with his fantasy game. Zaire Williams actually has a more translatable 9-category game. And if he's going to get the starters minutes, and if that's, because of Clowney being out or whatever, I think there's actually a shot for him to move up to a one-burger play, but I kind of want to see it first. Vasilije Micic, they call him Vasa. He's filling in for LaMelo Ball. He has one good game, and then he has 2 or 3 bad games. Again, very much a coin flippy kind of guy. If you need assists, he'll usually get you a few of those, typically on some bad percentages and not much other stuff. Spencer Dinwiddie, kind of the same story. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's not. I think I would play him if he's starting. It's that same story as Krejci and, frankly, Zaire Williams in this sort of low-confidence batch. Bruce Brown, I think I would play if Grady Dick misses another ball game. We haven't heard anything about Emmanuel Quickley coming back, but hopefully he's not too far away. Those guys being out has opened up enough space for Brown. And then Ochai Agbaji, same story. Same exact story as Bruce Brown. Those are your injury replacements. Here's the ads board. I think this is everybody's favorite part of our weekly shows. We have some new names on the board. We have 2 new names. We have a number of guys that are getting the repeat Dan Bespris seal of approval. I feel like I need like an noise there for the seal of approval. Isaiah Collier is the newest name on the board. I do think you need to be punting either field goals or turnovers, preferably turnovers, or both. Collier, vast. You hear what I say? Superior in 8-cat to 9-cat. Over the last 3 weeks in 9-cat, Collier is outside the top 200. Largely because his turnovers have been such a train wreck over that span. He's number 101 in 8-cat over that exact same span because he's at almost 4 turnovers a game, 12 points, 8 assists, a steal, a 3. The percentages are not good, but they're also not that bad. And so it really has to be a turnover thing. So more, I don't know how to annotate this on the show to make it seem right. Just hear my words when I say it's more about the turnovers than it is about the field goal. Santi Aldama. This one is a weird, like, semi-oversight. It's almost like every time I'm about to put Aldama on the board, something happens that knocks him out. And so for some reason, he hasn't been on the ads board yet this year. I have no idea how that happened. It's a gross oversight on my part. He should have been on here like 4 or 5 separate times early in the season. I didn't really believe it yet. He was on our Stream While Hot list, which still got him into lineups, but also I was kind of nervous to do it myself. And then he should have been started, and then he got hurt, and then he came back, and he should have been started, and then he got hurt again. And now I'm finally like, we finally get to a Friday where he's good enough and not hurt. Go figure. Here are some repeat names for a second week. Remember, last week we had a lot of new names on the board. Last week was super fun. Onyeka Okongwu, who's the starter in Atlanta. There's, as long as that sticks, then he's a must-roster guy. Nick Richards, low-end play. Low-end play. Just, again, to be very clear about what I think Nick Richards is in Phoenix, he's very much like a 100 range kind of guy. I don't expect him to be that great. He's won 70 over the last 6 games because he doesn't block many shots. He's an empty double-double kind of dude. But he's a decent foul shooter, so you're going to get okay percentages from him. And you just hope that if he plays 25 to 30 minutes, he can sort of fall nose first into a block. But there's no guarantee that that happens. The blocks he was getting earlier this year looked fluky and seemed to be. So he's not my favorite, but he does belong on the ads board because how many, double doubles on good percentages are floating around right now? Not that many, except this guy, Khalil Ware, monster. You guys don't need an explanation on that one. Jaden McDaniels, bad ball game his last time out, but that snaps a stretch of like 8 or 9 good ones in a row, which is kind of the flip reversed of what Jaden McDaniels had long time been, which was like 5 or 6 slow ball games and then 1 or 2 good ones. And now we've kind of turned it on its head. Like you can go back a little ways. January 15th, that was a bad ball game before that. It was a good one prior to that one. You could really say January 11th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 9 of his last 11 games have been good. That's good enough. He's way above a coin flip now, which is kind of what it used to be. I like Lonzo Ball. I know he's not playing a ton of minutes, and I don't expect that to change all that much. But from a 9-cat standpoint, especially like more on the roto side, over the last 3 weeks, Lonzo, where the hell is he? He's number 67 in 24 minutes a game. 10 points, 4 boards, 3.5 assists, 1.6 steals, 3 threes. Percentages are not good. It's not like, that's a thing that's buoying right now. He's just good at threes and steals, and he gets you a little bit of some of the other stuff. So Lonzo, he belongs on far more rosters than he's on right now, especially you rotoites. Yes, the skipped back-to-backs are notable. I get it. That's, that doesn't end well. Makes him a tougher play in head-to-head because you want to get as many games as you can out of a dude. But Roto Lonzo for sure belongs on rosters. And Nikola Jovic on the Heat just continues to truck along. We'll see what happens with the Jimmy Butler stuff. We got 6 days until the deadline. It kind of feels like they're going to string this thing out until the bitter end. Because the battle is apparently more important than the end result. So to that end, that means you get at least 6 more days probably out of Jovic. Maybe more. We'll see. Scoot. This is the 4th time in a row he's appeared on this board. It's been a weird up and down run for Scoot, but I think at this point you got to trust him. And I know that's not an easy thing to ask of you guys because he's been all over the map. And even looking recently, there's the big games and the slow games, and their minutes are getting jacked around. And he had a huge one last night out against Orlando with 23 and 7. And he had those 2 games where he barely played at all. But look, like even over the last month, he's number 116. Last 2 weeks, he's number 91. The combination of points and assists and steals and some threes is very hard to find. If you're punting turnovers, it makes this an even easier call, but those actually haven't been that bad lately either. So, yeah. And if Scoot stays on this board one more time, he'll drop into the rest of season board. Same with Andrew Nembhard, who missed the last ball game, but he's been rolling lately. He's shooting the ball really well. The free throws he had one really bad foul shooting game, and that kind of screwed everything up. But lately, he's at 11 points, 6 assists. Steals have been good. He's not going to hit 3-pointers. So I prefer to make Nembhard a punt threes play on your team. That really locks in his value. But lately, he's actually been good enough even without it. I don't know that that's necessarily going to stick. That's why I like to have the punt threes notation on there, because what I know to be true is that he'll be good if you're punting threes. What I don't know is, will he be good enough if you're not? He'll probably bounce kind of on either side of the cut line if you're not punting threes, where if you are, he'll stay on the right side of it. Couple updates on guys that had been on ads board in the last few weeks. Yves Missi is in the worry a lot category now. It doesn't seem like there's anything for him to do as long as Zion is around. Cason Wallace is a drop. He had twice made the ads board this year, a month and a half apart for punt points builds. Nah, just not enough there on a night-to-night basis. And then Jeremy Sohan, I do expect the minutes to ramp up here. I don't know what's going to happen with the Spurs and a possible De'Aaron Fox trade. If Sohan stays, it's probably good for him because they'll bring in a guard and they'll probably send out other wings. But at the same time, I think I'd give him a little bit longer. I also, again, this is another player where I prefer to be punting a certain thing. And for Sohan, it's free throws. I have him on 0 teams. I just have a lot of trouble trusting him. I don't know what it is. I'm not. His fantasy game is very reliant on the popcorn stats, the points, the boards, the assists. If those dry up, and we know that he's working back into more minutes right now. So there's a lot of stuff at play with Sohan that we can't really mush into, a one sentence reply on him. But for me personally, I'd rather go hunting for a great injury replacement or a stash guy. If you're punting free throws, again, I think that it, extends the leash. But if you're not, everybody's like, oh my God, Dan, what if I have to drop Jeremy Sohan? You'll be fine. It's not a big deal. Here are some of the names that have been on the ads board 4 times or more. Not all of them are good anymore. Most of them are, though. Christian Brown, Dyson Daniels, Tari Eason, PJ Washington, DeAndre Hunter, Shaden Sharp, Andrew Wiggins, Alex Sarr, Mark Williams, Herb Jones. Aw, Herb, we miss you. Chris Middleton, sucks lately. Malik Monk, and Russell Westbrook have all been on the ads board on this show for at least 5 separate shows. I took a few of these names and I shifted them around. I forgot to do that with Middleton. Middleton is barely hanging on to a roster spot. Here's the assorted ads names I've brought up on this show basically since November. I know it can be like, Dan, you can't add Denny Avdia anymore. I know. That's why he was a stash like a month and a half ago when Jeremy Grant went down. He was an injury replacement guy, and I was like, this is a dude that's going to crank it up post-deadline. Well, he cranked it up pre-deadline. So I get it. There's nothing you can do with that information right now, but I'm trying to be consistent with stuff that I've done on previous shows. There's a carryover. Other stash names, and you can go back, and I did a stash show, what is it, like a week and change back? Amen Thompson and Scoot Henderson were stashes that already hit. Avdia, Bilal Koulibaly, Alex Sarr, and Ayo Dosunmu were on that board. Avdia being the easiest of those bunch. Ayo, also a really easy guy to stash through the deadline. Alex Sarr's hurt right now, which screws that one up, and he's a pretty easy one to hold through the deadline. And Bilal Koulibaly is tougher because he's been really bad lately. But again, like Kyle Kuzma getting out of the way changes everything for the Wizards. And you might remember that because Kuzma missed like a month and a half earlier this year, and a bunch of other guys got stuff to do that aren't doing any stuff right now. A couple of close calls that I've had on the stash board. Well, hold on a minute. We're not quite done with what we're talking about right now. Robert Williams, Donovan Clingan, those guys are stash level. Oddly, I think Robert Williams might pay off first. We've had a lot of really sharp experts that have brought up Donovan Clingan on episodes, our stash episodes of this show. I'm actually on the other side of that. I think the Time Lord gets traded and has value within the week. I think Clingan might be more of a silly season guy, and so we might be looking at after the All-Star break or even later. Like a DeAndre Ayton shutdown might not happen until March. It might even be mid or late March. So we might be waiting a while on Clingan, maybe more like 3 to 5 weeks before Clingan hits, whereas with Robert Williams, it might be 1. Jalen Smith is also an interesting one that moved his way onto my stash board over the last week or so with all the positive rumors about Vooch getting moved. And then Keon Ellis is on my stash board now. He's a recent ad because of the De'Aaron Fox rumors. A couple other names that were sort of like second-tier guys. Tumani Kamara. I think if Portland clears out a few more shots, that's how he becomes a thing. I'm trying to think of some of the other names that I had brought up over the last few weeks that I liked, or even guests that had brought up that shifted in there for me. Gershon Yabusele is an interesting one. If the Sixers ever pull the plug completely on Joel Embiid, I wouldn't do anything about that yet. Stephon Castle, if he gets moved to sort of a third team where there's a lot of stuff for him to do, I don't think I have to act on that one yet. Zachary Reese-Shea, if the Hawks ever move hard into the youth movement, I think we're far away from that as well. And then Grady Dick, if the Raptors unplug some guys also. Oh, and Yusuf Nurkic is another one where if he gets moved to a team that gives him legitimate minutes. So those are more like the third tier guys, but I just wanted to make sure you guys knew those were names that I was kind of thinking about. Friends, before we get to the next sheet on our board here, I want to remind you guys that these shows nowadays are brought to you by our friends at UnderdogFantasy.com. It's a really cool new partnership to have. We're not going to do a card on today's episode of Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball because I want to keep moving through our weekend review. But you guys have seen me go through it before. It's just pick'em games. It's really fun and really simple. If you use our sign-up code, OLDMAN, OLDMAN, or just click the referral link in the show description, you can get up to $1,000 in deposit match bonus cash and a free play on the first card that you put together, which makes it even easier. And for those that are watching on YouTube, you saw all the odds boosts that you get there. If you make a pick'em card where you pick two higher and lower, two projections basically, take a higher or a lower on a player's points or threes or point, rebound, assist, or steals or blocks or whatever they've got for a lot of the common names in the NBA on a given night, you get 3x your cash. If you throw in a third, and that's now you're getting into parlay type stuff, you can 5x, 6x, 10, 20, 25, 40, 80x. Go crazy. Put $1 on like an 8 projection card if you want. Or, my preferred way is just pick 2. Don't try to shoot the moon. Odds are that's not going to work. I'm a pragmatic player of basically this is parlays, but it's just higher and lower. That's it. That's all it is. You can go to the NBA today and check out some of the games. It's a medium-sized Friday card to look at. You want to go to Clippers. They got a Charlotte game going on. Phoenix, Golden State's kind of a fun one. Boston, New Orleans, that's going to be high scoring. If you understand DFS, you also get a little bit of a leg up here, just understanding pace. You can also just look at like what the Vegas line is on a game because pace of play, they're going to have a pretty good idea of what's going down. And the lowest total on today's card is Clippers Hornets at 208.5. So if you want to look at some lowers, that might be the way to go. Milwaukee, San Antonio, and Boston, New Orleans, and Denver, Philly, all these clubs, all these games have totals in the 230s. There's some opportunities to maybe look at higher in those. Again, it's really straightforward and it's really fun. That's what makes it so cool. And what I love about UnderdogFantasy.com, again, promo code OldMan, is that you don't need to build out an entire DFS card. You don't need to understand how all the dollars match up and you use most of your budget and you slot all these players in. There's none of that. You just pick 2 players that you have a strong hunch on, higher or lower, and you're done. Just click the link in the show description. That's the fastest way. Let's play some Underdog together. We'll do a card together maybe over the weekend. All right, back to the show at hand. We did the stashes. Let's move through the holds and the worry board. The hold board, I put Christian Braun on here, and I don't know that it was entirely necessary because the numbers have actually been pretty good of late. He's had a couple of really nice ball games, actually, that pushed him back up into the early 70s in overall rank on the season. He's been a wonder on the percentages side. That field goal percent really never came down all year. But he did shift to the bench, which is notable because that meant Aaron Gordon is going to get more playing time. And Russ stayed in the starting 5. So is there going to be enough for Christian Braun? I think the answer is yes, but barely. So I wouldn't expect the numbers to be quite as good as they have been, but I expect them to be good enough to hang on. Bobby Portis is a hold while he's hurt. Again, he's sort of the king of the filler level guys. He'll go on a little heater. If Giannis misses a game, he'll go on a heater. If Brook Lopez misses a game, he'll go on a heater. He's a lot like a poor man's Naz Reid in that way, where like there's a lot of ways that he'll get enough usage to be fantasy relevant. Even taking Dame out of the picture, his minutes might not change that much, but his touches probably will. So there's all these little ways that Portis can get up and over the hump, and then that's when you try to move him, if anybody will bite. Tyus Jones, I'm going to hang on through the deadline just to see what Phoenix does. If it continues to be this level of production after the trade deadline, I probably end up moving on from Tyus, but we've come this far, so let's give him a little bit more. He's averaging just 8 and 6 with basically nothing else over the last 10 games or so, which makes him kind of a bad schedule play level guy. And obviously, that's not good enough to start full time going forward. But what if Phoenix kind of thins the herd? We don't know what they're going to do. And then Chris Middleton, who's also been terrible lately, not even inside. I don't think he's inside the top 200 over the last couple of weeks. No, he is. Similar to Tyus Jones, although with Middleton, he's kind of floating his value with a good field goal percent lately. I do not like bench Chris Middleton. I think if this continues to be his role after the trade deadline, then we probably end up punting on him. But for now, we'll give him a little bit longer and see what happens. You could even put him in the time to worry department. Yves Missy is very much a worry guy. I think you probably cut him. The only reason I'm not cutting Missy in some spots is I'm wondering if the Pelicans are close to pulling the plug on this year. And if they do that, and they play, one or two of their main guys and shut down the rest, and Missy goes back to being more of a full-time center, then he'd be fun again. Jeremy Sohan, we talked about earlier. Clint Capella. I think if you're punting free throws, you can hang on to Capella. If you're not, with his bench role, you probably could move on, which makes him kind of in this worry zone, kind of splitting the difference a little bit. And the cut board, getting longer these days. Malcolm Brogdon, he's been in there for a few weeks. Zach Edey, I moved over to the cut board. I think with the front court for the Grizzlies healthy right now, meaning mostly Aldama and Laravia being back, there's just not enough nightly for Zach Edey to be a play in all formats. And the Grizzlies are good, so nothing is about to just shift over the next couple of months. We talked about Cason Wallace earlier. I don't think he needs to be on rosters. Trace Jackson-Davis downgraded from a soft hold to a cut. He has been very bad lately. The Warriors are pushing all the buttons to see what sticks, and lately he has not been one of those buttons. Jonas Valanciunas I had on the soft holds board forever, and I don't really know why, because I was not a JV guy this year. I was in July when the Wizards signed him, and it looked like he was going to get a big role, and you could draft him at 130. And then as soon as he went up, like his draft price became inside the top 100, there was no way I was going to do that because we all knew he was going to get traded. Like your best case scenario is getting about 3 good months out of JV, which that's what I was going to do, I thought, with Al Horford, although we only got like a month and change out of him before Porzingis came back. But that was a guy I was willing to draft at 130, not 90. At 90, you're drafting guys that you think are going to be good all year. So I have Jonas Valanciunas in 0 places because his draft day price was way too high. And I don't know that he's going to get, I can't come up with a place where he's going to get more than 20 minutes. Who's going to give this dude more than 20 minutes? He's an old school lumbering big ox out there who can't guard anybody. Solid rebounder. So, there's plenty of places where they would use him for something. Let's say the Lakers go get him. I'd rather the Lakers get a defensive-minded center, but let's say they go the JV route. 20 minutes is probably what he's going to get, except for right now with Anthony Davis out. If the Lakers traded for JV, he'd probably be an injury replacement guy for AD for, week, 2 weeks, whatever that is. But if the Lakers are healthy, he's a 20-minute guy. He'll either start and play 20 minutes or he'll come off and play behind AD for 20 minutes. And they'll play together for stretches, but not long. That team's way too slow. What if he goes to Dallas? He'll get 20 minutes behind Gafford. Who else? Find me a team that would actually give this dude more than 20 minutes. So I don't really see the purpose in holding on to Valanciunas even as a stash. Derek Lively, I mentioned this last week. He's a cut because he's not going to be back in time. Same with Brandon Miller, who's out for the year. And Grady Dick, I don't even know why he's on this list. He's a relic of shows past. He's been a cut for a long time now, so nothing else to add there. And this is sort of like it's the last sheet, so the show's almost over. But it's also one of the most fun. And that's the watch list. These are all the guys right now that I don't think we bother stashing, but have a chance to amount to something more than a hill of beans. Aaron Gordon, who's starting again in Denver. Brandon Podziemski, who got a crapper set of minutes in the last ball game, but it actually been pretty good the 3 prior. Grayson Allen's been trending up, but I don't really want to add him because I'm worried the Suns are going to do something that's going to blow him up. You could for a couple of days, though. And again, we're using all of our whatever moves you're making right now. You got to do it this weekend now, I suppose, because you don't want to use any moves next week other than on actual trade deadline news. Ty Jerome, he's getting into one of his little heaters again. More in my mind of an injury replacement guy. Nick Smith Jr., I just don't think he's good enough. Max Strus for the Cavs, if that starts to break the right way. Duncan Robinson, and this is more about the Terry Rozier stuff than anything. And listen, I don't know what's going to go on with Jimmy Butler. I don't know what's going to go on with Terry Rozier. But if both of those guys suddenly have to be out, then who else would be able to do anything? You finally then thin the herd enough where Duncan Robinson probably then belongs on rosters, but not yet. I got to figure out what the hell's going on with Terry Rozier, who's, by the way, if you haven't heard the news, under investigation for possible, basically prop point shaving. They had unusual betting activity around Terry Rozier's last season prior to getting traded to Miami. Matas Buzelis in Chicago is a watch list guy. Again, some of our really smart guests have brought him up as a possible trade deadline stash. I don't think I'm going to use a roster slot on him. I think I think we need a couple of things to break right, but that's why he's on the watch list. Kamara, who we mentioned in passing earlier, is kind of like a second-tier trade deadline stash. Derek Jones Jr. has been really hot lately, and I can't help but wonder if this is one of those scenarios where he's not just running hot, he's just going to be open all the time. Now that the Clippers have Kawhi, Harden, and Norm in the starting lineup next to him, if Derek Jones is not just going to be all dunks and wide open threes. So he might, if he becomes like the full-time 30-minute guy, he might be that 100 range dude. But again, there's not a whole lot of upside there, so I'm going to keep him on the watch list for now. Bruce Brown is on the watch list. He's playable if, like we said earlier in the show, if Grady Dick and Emmanuel quickly remain out, he's playable. But he's more of a second-level stash. Bogdan Bogdanovic is on my watch list in case the Hawks decide that he's finally healthy enough to play bigger minutes, which, they got to find something with Jalen Johnson out. Although now I saw a rumor that Bogdanovic is being linked to both the Suns and the Lakers. I don't understand either of those. And Asar Thompson, to me, he's more of a guy that could surface if Tobias Harris has to miss time. The Pistons want floor spacing, and he doesn't provide it. And as much as you guys yell at me that Asar Thompson is going to be a thing, he's still another injury away from being a thing. You're going to just have to trust me on this. That's your show. Week 15 in review. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you made it this far, you got to subscribe. That's the rule of our closing remarks. Hit the like button. Go like our trade deadline live show. Subscribe. Check out Bet Online for Super Bowl action and UnderdogFantasy.com with promo code OldMan. Follow me on Twitter at Dan Bespris. We got shorts coming out. We got stash shows coming out. I think we've had 5. Have we done 5 stash shows so far? I've lost track. You guys can count it up. Or nobody can, because it doesn't really matter all that much. And we hit 6,600 YouTube subs today. So that was also kind of fun. 6,604 as we speak right now. I was at 0. And then we started Old Man Squad. So thank you guys. Let's keep growing this bad boy. We can do it with all of your help. I don't know what the hell my schedule is for the weekend. There will be a stash show that drops. I can tell you that. And we'll try to get a weekly preview show going, but it might be more important to talk deadline stuff. I'll think it through. We'll get it sorted out. Maybe do a recap show mixed in there. Either way, I'm out.